I'd like to welcome everybody to the 5,555th meeting of the Rotary Club of Chicago. Rotary 1 is now in session. Hopefully the number 5 is lucky in some culture. I know some numbers are lucky, some numbers are unlucky, but that's a lot of 5s today. So we're going to start our meeting as we always do with the thought of the day. And I would like to turn the floor over to our very own Mr. Gene Sullivan. Sully, the floor is yours, sir.
Thanks, Eric. Well, thank you for the invitation to give the thought of the day. To get ready for this, I took a look at the speaker's background and both Ibraheem and Danilo. Wow. So both our speakers, they both have big visions and goals with a long-term, almost decades-long focus to bring about sustainable and connected cities and disease prevention. And I have to tell you, whenever you're trying to do anything, as we all know, over time, it's hard and requires a lot of focus and help. And so I know we're all excited. I certainly am, and we all are, to hear what their service goals are. And I thought, for the thought of the day, can I find something that maybe might help sustain them over the long term? So I came up with the Paradoxical Commandments by Dr. Kent Keith. This is back in the 60s. He gave this as a part to university student leaders. However, it's a little bit harsh on some of the terms. And I like the version that allegedly was found tacked up in an orphanage run by the Missionaries of Charity, which was obviously based on Dr. Keith's Paradoxical Commandments, and it's called Do It Anyway. So here we go. People are often unreasonable, illogical, or self-centered. Forgive them anyway. If you're kind, people might accuse you of selfish, ulterior motives. Be kind anyway. If you are successful, you will win some false friends and some true enemies. Succeed anyway. If you're honest and frank, people may cheat you, but be honest and frank anyway. What you spend years building, someone could destroy overnight. Build anyway. If you find serenity and happiness, they may be jealous. Be happy anyway. The good you do today, people may forget tomorrow. Do good anyway. Give the world the best you have, and it may not be enough, but give the world the best you've got anyway. And you see, in the final analysis is between you and your God. It was never between you and them anyway. So I look forward to the presentation.
Thank you very much, Sully.
Can I say something really quickly about Kent Keith that he just read about?
Sure. Go ahead, Nancy.
I've met him. He's a great guy. He's a Rotarian.
Is that right?
Oh, wow. Even more perfect. Well, that was
great. And his thing, the Paradoxical Commandments, are really good too. What a great.
Thanks for mentioning that, Nancy. That's wonderful. And Sully, that was great. Words to live by at any time, but certainly very perfect for today's meeting. Before we get to our fantastic program today, we have a couple of announcements that I want to go through. The first, I just want to give a reminder about our Golden Wheel membership. This used to be called Easy Pay. It was called Easy Pay because it was theoretically easy, and you got all of your lunches included with that. We really appreciate the members who have continued to stay at that level, even though obviously lunches have not been part of the deal as of late. So we wanted to make sure to modify that membership to understand and make sure people understand how much we appreciate this membership level, which really helps with the club's operations. So you'll still get your meals once we get back to being in person, but you also are going to get spotlighted like you see right here on our website. Also, each of these members here will get an annual spotlight within the gyrator, a little write-up to feature that member. You'll also get 50 Paul Harris points, 50 Chess Perry points per month. all of that builds up towards ultimately getting your Paul Harris Fellowship and your Chess Perry Fellowship. So just wanted to remind people about that level of membership. So I also want to talk a little bit, speaking of policies, we certainly all recognize that it's been a challenging year. And I want to remind people that our club's top priority is the well-being of our members. And so our board over recent months has approved several member relief policies to help our members through challenging personal or financial times that we're all experiencing. So we want to make sure that your membership stays intact, and there are ways of making sure we can maintain your membership status no matter what your situation is. We don't want you to have to worry about that. We have various forms of relief for that. So please contact me or Ed or Karen or anybody at the office to discuss those options, and we'll make sure that you can continue being a member of Rotary One. Also want to point out, I know we have some different members on today than we've had over the last few weeks. So I'll ask this question again. Raise your hand if you got a text message from us this morning. Oh, good. I'm seeing a lot of hands going up. That's fantastic. That means our new text messaging program is working relatively successfully. It was one of the items from the strategic plan. If you did not get a text message, but you want to get a text message, please click the link in the chat box and put your cell phone number in there. If you didn't get one, it's not because you're not special. It's because we just don't have your cell phone number on record. And we'll make sure to get that out to you. Note that is a members only program. That text does not go out to non-members. So getting into our program for the day, you may have noticed, for those particularly who are new to the club or who are guests with us today, that this is called the Karl Zimmerman Young Entrepreneurs Series. And this is the second program for the Karl Zimmerman Young Entrepreneurs Series. And I want to say a few words about Karl because I know that some of you are new to the club or are guests. So Karl started his own company at age 14, which he grew into Steadfast, a multi-million-dollar cloud and managed hosting services provider. He was therefore the epitome of the young entrepreneur. Karl also was the epitome of service above self. He was an integral part of our club, serving on the board and chairing our Job One vocational program for Chicago high school students, which is, by the way, in full swing right now as we seek students and employers for that program. Karl meant a lot to all of us, and most tragically, Karl passed away last March at age 36. So we hold this series for young entrepreneurs, like our speakers today, in his honor. And before we get to the program, I wanted to give a shout out that Kathy Zimmerman, Karl's mom, is on with us today. Kathy, you're welcome to say a few words if you like. You don't have to, but if you like, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Eric. Yes, I really would like to say a few words. Good to see the Chicago Rotarians and guests that are here today. And I want to thank you for the invitation to this series and that you've recognized Karl's contributions and honored him in this way. As I've told you before, it just makes my heart sing. You know, you said he started when he was in high school, 14, but this recognition is particularly apt. He was an entrepreneur, but his first business he started when he was in 7th grade. He had been given a chunk of web space by a large computer gaming company in appreciation for his feedback and beta testing of their games. And he immediately put that gift to use by starting a web page design business and provided web space with those pages. His first customers were the grade school classmates that he had. then started web hosting right after that. His first server was under his bed. So he's come a long way. 3 of his leadership team are with us here today. And then 2 folks, the Rotary Club, you're to be complimented for supporting the efforts of young entrepreneurs, giving them a platform to tell their stories, supporting their efforts. I know, as you said, Karl felt so strongly about that. And it's a real privilege. I'm looking forward to hearing from Ibraheem and Irewole today from City Health Tech. I wish you men continued success as you go forward. But thank you again for the recognition and having me here today. And I must say, who else would recognize an entrepreneurial spirit better than the Chicago Rotary Club? First service clubs, Rotary service clubs. So it's all fitting, isn't it? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kathy. That's what I think too. That is definitely why we're doing it. So, thank you very much for the kind words, and it's always great to see you. So to introduce our speakers today, and also to keep the theme of young entrepreneurs going, I want to hand the floor over to one of Rotary One's own young entrepreneurs, a gentleman who founded his own logistics firm and multiple other firms, as we talked about earlier before the meeting, who I think must have a new creative business idea every day. He's one of our newest members, Mr. Danilo Tosic. Danilo, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Eric, for the kind words. I want to start off by saying that seeing young entrepreneurs and inventors is always exciting, especially when they are working on a technology that is going to make our world a safer place. It is encouraging to know that while we are out there doing our daily routines, someone is thinking about making our communities healthier. We need more people like that during the challenging times we are living in. It is my pleasure to introduce today's guest speakers, Ibraheem Alinur and Irewole Akande. Ibraheem Alinur has graduated from Northwestern University with a degree in Industrial Engineering and Management. He's a Gates Millennium Scholar, a member of the Obama Foundation Community Leadership Corps, and one of Chicago Zeno's 25 Under 25. His mission is to focus on building sustainable and connected cities of the future. Irewole Akande is an engineer and an entrepreneur. He graduated from Illinois Institute of Technology with a bachelor's in engineering management, and he is currently a candidate at the reputable SMU, a Cox School of Business. In 2017, Ibraheem and Irewole founded a company called City Health Tech, whose goal is to prevent billions of outbreaks that occur every year in order to save millions of lives that end too early to something that is preventable. Their company is a public health tech startup that aims to build a future of disease prevention technology using education, connected devices, and data. So, gentlemen, thank you for being our guest speakers today. It is a pleasure to have you. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much for that kind and generous introduction. It's always sometimes weird because as we get older to be introduced and to be part of these clubs. So we really appreciate being honored by the Chicago Rotarians. So for the framework for just conversation, we want to make this as open and flowing as possible. So we're going to go through a little bit of our backgrounds and our stories, how we got to where we are today, run through a brief presentation on the company, where we've been, and open it up for Q&A to talk more about our mission and vision. So we appreciate having this audience and your perspectives, and any thoughts of opinions or connections or whatever you feel like you may share is important to us, and we're excited to hear that. So I'll introduce myself a little bit more in depth. So I'm actually from Florida. I grew up outside of Orlando in a single parent household raised by my mom, who's from Trinidad and Tobago. So my family is from all over the Caribbean. And I didn't even know what the word entrepreneurship was. And I think that's one of the most powerful things, is just learning that term. Because ever since I was little, we were always kind of strapped for cash. I was tutoring since the age of 10. When I started selling candy backpack, I was the guy, at the bus stop, had a bag of Jolly Ranchers, $20. I was always selling something, and I didn't even know that was a trait or what that was until I got into an experience in my senior year of high school where I had the opportunity to really dive into this world of entrepreneurship. And when I learned more about what it meant to be an entrepreneur, it just sounded like being, a community leader. You find people, you engage with the community, you figure out what their problems are, and you build problems that can make profits, and help people. And so given my likes and interests, I felt like maybe entrepreneurship is kind of where I wanted to go. And that kind of stemmed me on this giant career path of being an entrepreneur and being at Northwestern and access these interesting resources. That's why if I'm in the Chicago area, I like to rep Garage. The Garage is an entrepreneurial center at Northwestern, and I think it was pretty key and core to my entrepreneurial experience. It gave me a framework and an ecosystem to be an entrepreneur. And being an entrepreneur is a little bit weird, especially being an undergrad or someone who is a young entrepreneur. It's not something that's typical. It takes a lot of hard work and a different mindset. And so having a place where you feel a bit more comfortable, having a little bit of resources, and I'll kind of show some of those resources and why they're important to us, was incredibly impactful. And through the last, I think 6 years of this startup journey, it's been incredible to see all these other entrepreneurs. I think my favorite part of being an entrepreneur is meeting other entrepreneurs. It's like finding other community leaders and service members who are able to, kind of rally their communities to do something good. And I just think it's a testament to being able to always be pitching. I actually met Wole when I was an intern at the UI Labs. So UI Labs is based out of Goose Island, Chicago, focusing on digital manufacturing and city technologies. And I remember I was a sophomore. I saw this banner that said cities of the future. And something about that resonated with me and said, you know what? I could dedicate my life to that. That sounds pretty cool. I have no clue what that means. But if you ask me what I want to do by the time I'm 50, I want to be building the cities of the future. I don't really know where to take me, but that's my North Star. And with that perspective, I've been able to absorb a lot of interesting experiences. So I was at this startup career fair. I saw this banner and I said, hey, that's exactly what I want to do. What it's going to take for me to work with you? And I harassed them enough to let me in as an intern, which they traditionally didn't take. And I ended up working there for almost a year and a half and understood a lot about what it actually takes to implement a project in the city, understanding the pain points around digital manufacturing. And at the end of the day, understanding the entire US supply chain. How do we all come together? And I think that perspective was very helpful for me and understanding how intertwined everything is, from the small manufacturers in Illinois versus the big manufacturers, and how all these things play together. And so that's kind of my mindset around service, around how do we actually look at systems. I mean, my degree is in industrial engineering for that reason, and figuring out how do we design solutions for that. And I'll kind of touch in more about, the entrepreneurial startup journey of City Health Tech, but I just wanted to give a little bit more framework about my background and how important it is for me to be where I am today and kind of leading where I am. Wole?
So good morning and good afternoon, everyone. So I always love when Ibraheem goes first, because then I just gut everything. But that aside, so I'm from Nigeria originally. So I grew up in Nigeria for most of my life. And then I actually came into the US about 8 years ago to pursue my degree in engineering. I think what really drew me to entrepreneurship growing up in Nigeria is there was this idea about what a job was, right? Everyone works hard enough, you can get one of three jobs, right? You're either a doctor, you're a lawyer, or you're an engineer, right? So those were the options. And then the last option was that you were disowned, right? Those were the limits within which I grew. And just going through life, one question I always ask myself is, okay, so something is wrong here. Why isn't anyone doing it? The roads are bad. No one is taking out trash. We have things on the roads. We have things on the streets. Why isn't anyone doing it? And the constant feedback I always got was, that's not my job. That's not our job. We're not meant to do that. So for me, being an entrepreneur meant actually finding those problems in your society, solving those problems, using whatever you get to solve more problems in order to uplift your entire society. That's what entrepreneurship came to me. When I chose to pursue my degree in the United States, every single point in my life, I was thinking, okay, what can I build to help the problems I saw back home? So City Health Tech is actually my third startup. Before then, I'd worked on a project to create solar panels or solar systems for small and medium-scale companies back in Nigeria, right? Can we be able to provide electricity? Because that's a huge problem. And it's funny I say that because that's something I'm experiencing right now in Dallas. I currently have no electricity because of the snow, and we're actually currently out. And I think it just sort of reiterates that importance of solving these large-scale problems that revolutionize the way societies can work. So that was the first project I worked in. After that, I worked on a project to connect small businesses to users within their immediate geographical area, because the more small businesses they never grew. So I was like, okay, can I actually create a way for them to find new customers? people moving into these areas so they don't get pushed out by the big businesses. So that's more or less what I've done a lot of my life before I ran into Ibraheem. So Ibraheem gave me a pitch, and he's going to talk a little bit about it. So the pitch was 95% of people do not wash their hands properly. 80% of diseases are spread through touch. Can we find a way to solve that problem? And that's what took us on this journey. The last 3 years have been some of the most exciting about in my entire life. And I'm super excited for you to hear about it. And we're looking forward to your questions. Thank you.
Yeah. And so a little bit more about how we came up with this idea. I think everyone always wants to know the origin story. It was actually from my mom. So as Wole says, you have to be a doctor, lawyer, engineer. And unfortunately, none of my mother's kids decided to want to be a doctor. So she decided to go get her first degree in nursing. And she decided that in that program, she wanted to really understand all these different interesting pain points and understand the US healthcare system. And she was sitting in a class and she shared the story with me. There were 100 nurses in a room. And there was one doctor standing in front of all these nurses, and they said, to effectively wash your hands, you need to sing the happy birthday song twice. That is an uncomfortably long period of time. And she actually did a practicum and found the average doctor washes their hands for 8 seconds. And I thought that was insane for something that is so impactful and so important. Most people are not doing it correctly. And if doctors aren't doing it correctly, most likely nobody else is. And there's nothing worse than seeing somebody go into a bathroom, put their hand under water, and just immediately leave. So why is that? And so we found that the way we actually track hand washing times currently is with a clipboard and stopwatch. That is the cutting edge technology of the research going around hand washing, is somebody watching you wash your hands. And so that kind of sparked this idea of, well, how can we actually collect data and how do we actually encourage that behavior? So I'll share my screen now and walk through a little bit more about what we've been doing with City Health Tech. So City Health Tech's goal is to focus on preventing the spread of global disease. We founded this company in 2017, and now might be not engaging now that we're coronavirus. But I think it's important to understand there's a world before coronavirus, and there will be a world after as we think about future pandemics, the common cold, and rates of infections. So this is the statistics that really show this. We found that there are $40 billion lost in US GDP due to the common cold, and that there are 1 billion cases of the common cold in the US per year. That means the average adult will get sick nearly times and children nearly twice that. This results in more than 100 million days of work missed. There are $100 billion if we looked at a loss due to all preventable illness, which seems like a bucket when we look at a pandemic now. And what's more interesting is that there's 80% spread of disease is through touch. So not through aerosol, but it's more or less someone coughs, they sneeze, they wipe their nose, and they touch a surface. You touch it and you end up getting sick. So 95 people do not wash their hands correctly. If you think about that, that means every single person, 95% of people are vectors of infections into their communities. And what we want to do is draw focus on that hand time. And this is why it's important. So the CDC recommends 20 seconds of hand washing. You can see a hand here that after you wash for 10 seconds, this is the white residual marks around the wrist, on the arm. There is still a lot of bacteria left on the hands. In about 2 hours, it'd be as if you hadn't washed your hands at all. And let's be honest, the average person is for 10 seconds. I remember when I met Wole, he was sure that he washed his hands for 20 seconds. He put a timer down and it was 12 to 14 seconds. It's actually very hard to get to 20 seconds. This is what a hand looks like after 20 seconds. You can see it's entirely clean. It makes a drastic impact and difference. And what was more interesting is we found that there were a lot of case studies that showed hand washing has reduced rates of infections in schools by at least 20%. And that was kind of our thesis. Well, could we go into a school and replicate those studies just by using hygiene education and then integrate our technology to see what could we actually change through behavior? So this is kind of our little product map and journey. So in 2018, we created a device, very small device, attaches things using vibrational sensors with LEDs. We decided that most people don't even know you should be washing for 20 seconds. There's an educational piece behind this. So we thought about what if we put a screen? You can see what's that design around attaching these things. And we realized that we wanted to move this device to be right next to the faucet, opposing the other side of the soap. We've been user testing this across 5 K-12 schools and impacting hundreds of students, not just with our device, but also integrating new educational curriculum around community health, really understanding that hand washing is a connected chain on a preventable disease, and what you do impacts other people. And so I'll walk through slides fairly quickly, but what we're focusing is on the future of hand washing. Now, our device is focused on being superior design, having a very simple setup so everybody can have access, to be equitable, and being data driven, meaning we're transmitting that data to determine the performance of the device. We can create dashboards that look at this, so you can see across all your locations, everything you could want to know about your hygiene analytics. So in the last, 2 or 3 years, me and Wole do not come from well-means backgrounds. We bootstrapped our way to where we are today. We won $25,000 in awards, focusing being at the Northwestern community, participating in a 10-week accelerator program called Wildfire. We did the NSF iCorps program, being the first undergraduate-led team ever to participate in that program at UChicago booth. We won awards at Kellogg, and we've been winning a lot of awards over the last year, which has been incredibly exciting. And I'd like to share this. One of the most promising student startups in the country by the Accelerated Liftoff list. And of the 25 other startups on that list, 60% had raised more than $1 million. So it really goes to show how far we're able to stretch our dollar. And we've been featured in a bunch of places here in Chicago. We are on Fox Chicago, Forbes, Obama Foundation, the Chicago Block Club, which has been really exciting. And I wanted to share a few of our pilot partners and customers. So we focus primarily on schools and food manufacturing. So this is an example of a food manufacturing process center in Skokie, and one of our devices placed next to their faucets. This is what an integration could look like. He said these devices will be critical in keeping his employees safe. We also did pilots at the Academy for Global Citizenship, which is a school on the southwest side of Chicago. And you can see these are some of our early prototypes just placed next to their bathroom. We're focusing on hand washing compliance, hand washing technique, being a symbol of community safety, focusing on data analytics and having tailored content. When you approach this thing, we can play virtually anything. It can be mindfulness reminders, encouragement to recycle, and a series of educational content outside of just how to wash your hands. We're currently charging $125 per device, with a subscription fee of $10 monthly per device for dashboard access and new animations. These are other competitors in the space. I won't dwell too much on this, but there are a lot of people in the hand hygiene space focusing on that healthcare setting. And what we want to do is take those understandings of that hospital world and bring that into other markets, such as the food manufacturing, as well as schools. These are some interesting statistics just by industry. 189 million days of school missed due to the common cold alone. That's about 1 million days of school missed every single day due to something that is preventable. And that's not even talking about the impact we have on business productivity, the 48 million cases of foodborne illness, the 1.7 million healthcare-acquired infections, and the billion cases of the common cold. So as you can see, there's a pretty big market here around disease prevention. This is just to kind of see how big could this market be if we look at sinks. And this is a little bit more about our team. So there's also me and Wole, as you've seen, but there's also some interesting people in the room as well, such as Decorah, who is our lead design engineer, Leah, who's been focusing on marketing, Tobo, who's our data scientist, who creates our dashboards, and Omo, who's our health communication specialist. And this is also our Northwestern student team. I think really important to us as we've onboarded probably more than 100 undergrads over the course of the last 3 to 4 years to help us work on our projects. So we've had a lot of experience leading and managing teams and getting a lot of people focused and encouraged based on what we're doing now. So that's kind of where we are today. We're focusing on building the future of disease prevention. We'll be launching our prototypes in beta over the summer and full scale in the fall. I also wanted to show this. This was during COVID-19. Because of our work, we actually been connected with a lot of these infectious disease control experts. And over the pandemic, we've been working very closely with the Chicago Principals Association to provide them with a lot of their academic expertise to create reopening plans, being a soundboard and hosting other events like this to be able to foster that connection between academics and actual educational providers. And what we found is that there's not a lot of that work being done. And then in the field of disease prevention, a lot of it's not focused on school. And that's a community we hope to foster, is to focus on these other opportunities outside of the healthcare setting and bringing them into schools. And the last piece is just wanted to thank you all for your time. And I'm happy to take some questions now.
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. That was fantastic and very inspiring. I think I'll just start out by saying, listening to you gentlemen definitely gives me faith in the future of society. So that's it's wonderful to hear from guys like yourselves. If folks have questions, please do type them into the chat box. I guess I'll start out with a couple of questions. You mentioned trying to focus on education and educational institutions rather than just medical facilities. And I know you also had that slide where you showed some of the impacts from perhaps improving hand washing in different types of facilities. Is it your theory that basically educational facilities would have essentially the greatest impact of sort of any sector? If by starting there, is that kind of why you're focusing on educational facilities?
That's exactly right. If you think about how you actually change the mindset of people, that's why we focused on schools. If we want to get people to wash their hands, that's something you have to almost ingrain into when you're in elementary school. And I think anyone working in the elementary school setting knows how important it is. Every single thing that you teach an elementary schooler is going to have a pretty drastic impact on their life. And so if you can teach people that hand washing is important, kind of get a feel what that 20 seconds is like, maybe we actually are creating no customers for ourselves because the world would be a part of people who actually wash their hands. And that'd be okay in like 20 to 30 years from now. But I think that's definitely why we focused on there, is because there is such a large income, and specifically on low income communities. It's actually really interesting if you look at rates of attendance. Primarily, if you come from a low income community, a single parent household, you actually have a higher rate of attendance than somebody who has parents who have a doctorate education, for example. And so you find these low income communities, for example, like the Academy for Global Citizenship, they mentioned their number one issue was kids missing school due to disease. And they can't do anything else around that. People don't think that you can actually prevent disease. And that's sort of the mind shift that we want to change, is that you can prevent that. So for example, if I'm a kid, I'm in second grade, I miss out on a lecture on fractions because I'm sick with the flu, that student might be able to find time with that teacher outside of class, or might be hire a tutor. But then in that specific scenario, if you have a dozen students missing, that teacher is overwhelmed. They can't take time to teach each one of those students. They fall behind. People aren't sick on the same schedule either. So it becomes this really chaotic nightmare of people who don't have the same information. And if you can't afford a tutor or your parents can't teach you, you fall behind. And that's why I think a lot actually think they're bad at math. It's probably because you were sick and you missed out on an important lecture, and that cascaded.
So I will address the question we just got in the chat. So I think the question from Liz reads, have you looked at the impact of how many children are taking their new knowledge of hand washing back to their family and friends? We'll be very honest when we say we've actually not measured that, but we can actually speak anecdotally how several parents that we've, just talked to the kids about hand washing, or even the parents themselves have realized that once their kid sees them not doing it properly, they'll actually be like, you didn't wash your hands properly, you have to wash your hands properly. And there's no better motivator than having your kids, encourage you to do the right thing. So that's how we have anecdotally, but currently we've not collected enough data to really show that impact of our education.
Yeah. Kids have no filters. They will call you out.
Yes, I've definitely seen that. That's that's a really good point.
So I see Nate has a question regarding our future roadmap of products and services to focus on our profitability.
Yeah, my basic question, first of all, congratulations on going after a public health problem. It's very challenging. I know one of the things that gets in the way is a lot of investors want to get their money back. That's the point of investing. So in terms of your roadmap for other products and services you're going to add along the way, have you considered partnering with companies around maybe the soap itself, around some sort of lotion or butter for after the hand washing? I know personally, I don't wash my hands for 20 seconds with a lot of soap every single time I wash my hands because my hands get dry. So is there some way where you can address what are some of the reasons why people don't do 20 seconds and use soap every time that actually helps you guys make some more money in the process?
Yeah, so I can take that question, and I think I'll take that question with the next one because I feel like they tie in very well together. So the next question is from Paul, and he says, have you considered partnering with a company that manufactures faucets? So as a whole, yes. So we actually have a roadmap of what we're looking to do. So our first product, we're thinking about it as we have this product, right? We are retrofitting an existing space, and that existing space, we then want to open other opportunities for us to play in that. So on the roadmap, we've actually designed several iterations of the device that'll be able to provide, extra capabilities. So whether that's, soap dispensing as well. So we detect we're able to dispense soap, and we're able to partner with people that make lotion. So I've actually was talking to someone a couple of days ago, just talking about, okay, what would that look like to get like CHD branded things? So that can actually be our lead in, and then we can actually pull our device into it in the next iteration coming this summer. So that's the first question. Next question is, yes, we've talked about manufacturers' faucets, but I think for us personally, just because of where we are in our process, we want to make sure we align every single thing with our licensing as well as our patents. So that way we'll be able to license that. So once we get to that point, it makes more sense for us to make, those connections. But as at this point in time, we're trying to make sure we can create a retrofit market, and then we plan to go into new buildings. So that's on our roadmap for a year, 2 years from now.
Yep. And I'll answer Eugene's question because that also ties into like our long-term profitability and sustainability. Like, first off, we're making our money back on the investment of the first device. So we've done a really good job of making sure that ROI makes sense. So not many people know this, but every day that a student is missing, a school will actually miss out on $30 to $50 in lost funding. It also impacts the rates of attendance and student performance, which then in turn impacts their funding. So there is a pretty strong ROI case study there. And in terms of the screen views, you can have anything on that screen. And that's a big portion of what we're doing is customizing and tailoring that to the exact audience. So we'll be able to know that you are in this specific school in this location, you are male or female, maybe even to extent what grade you are, and play specific content on that. So for example, maybe it's quick math of a 2 + 2 = 4, or it's a mindfulness reminder, or a dancing bear, or whatever that is, versus someone, for example, like in 1871 or a merchandise mart. We could put our devices to showcase portfolio companies, or we could do employee spotlights. So you could say, hey, this is the student of the month, the employee of the month. You can get pretty personal with the types of things that are on the screen. And that's going to be a big important piece to what we're doing is about the content. So for example, a great analogy we've been learning about is harm in hospitals. So for example, doctors might prick themselves with needles, or they're dealing with hazardous waste. It's one of the big issues that they're facing right now. And if we're able to show and reinforce that training, could we actually have a secondary impact? Not only are we getting people to wash their hands, but now we can see a reduction in rates of hazardous materials impacting other people. So there's like that secondary piece of how we're actually changing human motivation and behavior.
And I would take the next question. We talked about water. So we'll like I always say, I'm always going to be very open and honest, right? So currently we've not done extensive studies into water, right? So we've not done any extensive studies into the provision of water. But what I can tell you is just like you see us being passionate about hand washing, there are a ton of entrepreneurs that are also looking into hand washing space, and that's something we're keeping our eyes on. We're looking, okay, who are those people that are making, forward mobility or upward mobility within this field, and how can we collaborate with them? So at this point, we've not found an opportunity that ties directly with us, but that's something that's very important to us because one of the big core parts of our company is sustainability. So we're certainly keeping our eyes peeled on that.
No, that's great. And to kind of tie into that question a little bit, Pancho's question, in terms of your geographic market, right now, are you focusing primarily just in Chicago? Are you looking to expand across the country and possibly expand globally to other parts of the world?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we envision ourselves being a global company just like everybody does. I think we're taking it one step at a time. We have some locations in Dallas as well, now that Wole is doing his MBA there. So we are kind of finding little pockets across the country, people reaching out to us, which we're opening to pilot. But I think for our first initial installations, we're most likely going to be focusing on the Chicago market and then moving into Dallas. So we have so much goodwill and so many people we know in Chicago that it really is close to our heart. I mean, I'm somewhat of a nomad. I've been moving around every year for the last 6 years, but I've always been in Chicago. Even growing up, I kind of moved around a lot. And so I kind of consider Chicago my home. And that's where I met my wife and where a lot of her family is. So I think definitely that's where we want to start.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Well, we're certainly glad to have you guys here in Chicago and doing your work here. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Wole.
I was going to say we have one last question, and that's from Wayman. And I think it says, from a public health perspective, It's a good idea to wash your hands before you actually start touching yourself 100%. I can't begin to tell you how much my entire life has changed since we started working on this particular problem. So I wash my hands probably like way too much. So and every one of my friends that has met me, the moment they walk into a bathroom with me, the first thing they are thinking is, oh, Wale is here. Just because for a long time, we've worked really, really hard to sort of make the people around us buy into this idea of like, self-preservation by prevention, right? So even with COVID, one of the first things I did was really just start educating my friends. Like, remember all these things I was talking about? They're saying it on the news now, right? So that's something that's a huge part. So I think like at every point in time, you want to touch yourself before you want to wash your hands before you touch anything. So I wash my hands before I use the bathroom and after. So that's how personal it is for me. So
I started washing my hands before I use the bathroom. It's so weird. Like, it's nothing I thought I would do, but I find myself like, I guess I should wash my hands before. It's not a normal behavior.
Yeah. Like I said, I do that a lot. I've been doing that too, because it just makes sense to me, because it's like you're walking around all day, you're touching people, you're touching things, then you go to the bathroom. It just makes sense to me to wash my hands first before I touch myself. And I wash my hands afterwards as well.
That's really interesting. I had not thought about that either, but I totally see where you guys are coming from. So this is educational for me too. I have a couple additional questions as well. The first one is more focused on the business side of things. And I know you kind of early on talked about some of the things that helped you guys succeed. But just from the perspective of us as the Rotary Club of Chicago, what are the types of things that we or other organizations can be doing to really try to help out and encourage other young entrepreneurs in Chicago?
I think I'll start, and I think Ibraheem probably have more to add to this. And the first thing I'll say, you're currently doing it, right? You're giving us young entrepreneurs a platform to tell our story, to talk about the problem, to talk about the solution we want to build. And I think like that's probably one of the most important things for us, right? So when we go into a conversation or we go into a meeting and we tell them like, hey, we've had an opportunity to partner with Rotary one of the largest, nonprofit organizations in the entire world. They had an opportunity to listen to us. We have partners there. We have supporters within these spaces. It lends us the credibility we need to actually go out there and solve these problems that we're passionate about. So on one hand, I want to say thank you. Thank you so much for giving us this platform. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity. And on the other hand, it's like, you're doing a phenomenal job by giving us this platform. And I think Ibraheem is probably going to add a few more things to that.
Yeah, I think the issue that if you're intelligent and equitable enough to ask that question, you're probably doing the right things. So the people who aren't asked the question is where you need to harass those people. But I think a great way to support entrepreneurs is understanding that young entrepreneurs specifically do not have all the answers. Me and Wole are very comfortable not knowing everything in the world. And I think a big portion of that is because we have such strong mentors around us. Having people we can randomly meet on LinkedIn, having a random introduction, and finding who's willing to spend half an hour of their brain to share their specific ideas. I think that is such an incredible value. And how me and Wole really got to where we are is by leveraging probably thousands with really intelligent people, bringing them into our ecosystem and using their brains to kind of help build our brains. It's like accelerating your brain levels, right? It's like if I don't know something, I can go talk to somebody who did it for 30 years or was an expert, and I can gain information. So I think that's a great way to do that, is just being open to mentorship. And as Wole mentioned, is just promoting and being aware and sharing a lot of that value. Because, if you're starting with no brand, specifically if you're just getting started from scratch, momentum is the game. And I think me and Wole have learned that really well. We started from winning $1,500 at a pitch competition to getting into an accelerator program with $10,000. And then we got featured in, things just start spiraling. And sometimes you just need someone to invest in you and to be able to have that kernel to latch onto to grow.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And I'm glad to hear that we're kind of pointing ourselves in the right direction here. There were a few folks in the comments who've talked about some maybe specific opportunities. Liz Goggins down in the Virgin Islands. So I think maybe we might connect you guys after the meeting, if you don't mind, just to see if there's any opportunities there. I also want to say I won't put you guys on the spot, but I hope at some point that you perhaps consider joining the Rotary Club of Chicago. We would love to have members like you gentlemen with the kind of energy and insightfulness that you have. I think those are exactly the types of members that we are looking for. And if not our club, like I said, there's 36,000 clubs in the world. I'm sure you can find one that's a good fit. But together we can do a lot of good. So I'm going to wrap up the questions now, but before we wrap up the program, I do want to talk about a little token of our appreciation that we will be sending your way. If at any point the Postal Service is able to start delivering down in Texas again when the snow melts away. This particular gift, it's a candle. And the idea with this gift or anything that we invest in is the idea of affecting lasting change in Chicago. So all proceeds from these candles support Bright Endeavors and their mission to empower young moms by providing transitional jobs and professional skills training. So this not only helps those young moms, but of course it supports their kids and ultimately the communities. So we'll get one of those in the mail out to you two gentlemen. And just want to say again, thank you so much for joining us today. Everybody, please give them a virtual round of applause.
Thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it.
You bet.
Thank you
Our
so
pleasure.
much.
Our pleasure. Yeah, feel free to reach out again in the future if there's any way that we can be of service. And again, as I said earlier at the top of the program, feel free to stick around as long as you like for the program. And if you need to go, also, that's totally understood. So the next step in our program is always the introduction of our guests. And we have a good number of guests with us today. So I'm just going to read through the folks in my participant list here. If you could please just state your name, state what you do, and if you are a Rotarian, just tell us what club you're with so that we can get through all of our guests here with us today. So the first person on my list is Adekunle Osoba. If you could just briefly introduce yourself.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Adekunle Osoba, and I'm a past president of the Rotary Club of Antigua. District 7030 here in the Caribbean. My classification is banking, risk, and compliance. And it has been a great presentation by these two young entrepreneurs, and I wish them all well.
Well, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, please come back and join us anytime. Let's see who else we have with us today. I see a Galen. Could you please introduce yourself?
Hi there. My name is Galen Mason. I am a corporate partner at the law firm of Michael Best in Chicago. I specialize in venture capital and working with entrepreneurs. I'm a guest of, I'm not a Rotarian, but I'm interested in learning more. And I am a guest of my partner, Marshall Schmidt, who I think is also on the line.
Well, wonderful. Thanks for joining us today, and feel free to come back anytime and get a little more flavor of the club. And also, I'm sure Marshall can tell you as much or more than me, but feel free at any point to reach out. I'd love to tell you more about the club. All right, Irv, you're up next. Please,
yes, hello.
There you go.
I have to tell you this. Ruth said, how come he's talking in front of a sink? And I says, I think it's got something to do with the program. So anyhow, it was an excellent program. I've always believed in washing hands. I sing happy birthday to my granddaughter every time I wash my hands. That leaves 7 grandchildren unsung.
Well, thank you very much, Irv. And by the way, you're not the only one who had the question about the sink. I know there were a few other folks who had that, so that was perfect. It was a nice teaser, got everybody's interest.
It was cute. I'm gonna mute now.
Very good. Thanks, Irv. Good to see you guys. Let's see who is next on my list here. That person just dropped off, so not that individual. Nate Rubin. Nate, please introduce yourself.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name's Nate Rubin. I'm a member of the Passport Club. I was originally a Rotarian, a member of the Northbrook Club, and for a brief time when I lived in Chicago, I'd attend as a guest at your events. I really like them. I joined the meeting today because I got the email about the Young Entrepreneurship Series. As I mentioned in the chat, I knew Karl, and I was just excited at the opportunity to honor him and know what was going on. And I run several businesses. My primary company is a digital marketing company that I started 7 years ago. And then I'm also in the process of building a fitness company. I run a consulting business, and I'm also in the process of becoming a financial planner and advisor. So I like to keep busy, and I like to keep learning and find ways to bring value to people.
Oh, that's fantastic. It seems like you fit in quite perfectly with the young entrepreneur theme. So thanks for joining us today. Our next guest from Uganda, Richard, welcome back. Please introduce yourself. You may be on mute, Richard.
Thank you, President. I hope I'm audible.
Yes. We can hear you.
Sorry, I can't play my video, but I'm always grateful attending this Rotary Club. I've only not joined it as a Rotarian, but at least I'm happy that I'm serving another Rotary Club. And it was a very interesting presentation around health because I'm a health entrepreneur. And it even became much more interesting that all the way from Kampala, Uganda, East Africa, so many miles I could listen to someone talking of hand washing as a business that I think we should actually do more in our part of the world. And it's even much more exciting that there were some venture capitalists on the call. I know that we shall connect even more. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you for joining, and always good to see you. And maybe we can connect you as well with our guests today. Our next guest, back again from Sydney, Australia. Ronnie, please introduce yourself.
Good morning, but I should say good afternoon to you all. I'm from the Rotary Club of Sydney, and I actually live in Queanbeyan, which is about 10 kilometres away from the Federal Parliament House in Canberra. My category is retired customs officer when I left the federal government at the age of 40. 17 years later, I find that I work in the horsing or racing industry, and I also do house and pet sitting on a professional side. Pre-COVID and post-COVID, I intend to pick up again. In the past, I've actually been one of the board members of our local area health service, then called Northern Sydney, which stretched all the way from Sydney Harbour Bridge up to the north in a place called Hornsby, and covered just over 1 million people and employed 1% of the people in that area. I actually think that you could expand what you're doing actually worldwide, because as you did say, doctors don't wash their hands. Unfortunately, nurses, sometimes if you don't encourage them, don't wash them as efficiently as much as well. So I actually look forward to seeing you progress this a long way, especially if the water doesn't turn off, because then it forces the person to wash their hands longer. Congratulations on what you're doing.
Well, thank you so much, Ronnie. And I think you're right. There's just a ton of potential with this concept in a lot of different ways they could certainly go. Are there other guests with us today that I may have missed? Anybody out there? No? All right. Well, then let's move on with our announcements, because we have a busy day of announcements here, which is all good. There's a lot going on in the Rotary world, so I want to make sure to share a lot of this information with all of you. A lot of great opportunities here. We've heard from the district that there's an opportunity now to apply for a position on the district board of directors. At the end of this Rotary year, there'll be 3 director-at-large vacancies open on the board. It's a 3-year term, so please reach out if you have any interest. I see that Tamara has posted information in the chat box. If you're interested, you can always reach out to one of us as well. In terms of volunteer opportunities, I do want to thank our fellow Rotarians, Danilo and Philippe. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for helping us sort through 250 children's jackets. Those jackets came to us free of charge. We just had to sort through them and get them to kids. And they are going to a Safe Haven, Salvation Army, and the Night Ministry. So I think we've got all of those jackets just about accounted for. We also have our ongoing Meals for Seniors program. So again, thanks to those folks who came out last Friday to help Alita deliver those meals to Maple Point Apartments. I know we had Corey Michael and Sean Lent. I believe they're from the Rotary Club of Montgomery, that actually came down and helped us out. So many thanks to them for doing that. This is a volunteer opportunity that is back on the calendar again every Friday at 5:30 p.m. Please register online at the calendar. The location is in Old Town at 150 West Maple. It's a great opportunity to help seniors and give them a little bit of human interaction during these COVID times. There's also another opportunity to volunteer coming up, and this one we really do need volunteers to step up for, and it's a very easy, socially distanced volunteer activity you can do from the comfort of your own home, whether you're in Michigan or Florida, wherever you're at right now. We need people to help read virtually to students. So February 19th, that's this Friday, we have 2 sessions at 2 p.m. and 2:30 p.m. We need volunteers to read books to 2 different classes of 3rd graders. You have to have your own book, which is not too hard. You can always go to the library and pick up a book or order it on Amazon. It'll probably be there before Friday, preferably focused on topics relating to healthy nutrition, physical activity, or sports. If you're unsure if your book fits into that category or is appropriate for 3rd graders, reach out to myself or to the office or to Sarah Buck, and we'll make sure to talk to you about that. Let's see here. There's a variety of other things going on. We have the Shamrock Shuffle on March 19th through the 21st. There is a Rotary Club of Chicago team page open for registration. Registration is $30 per person and includes a bunch of nifty swag, but really the whole point of this is to generate a little buzz for the Rotary Club of Chicago, and of course, it's an alternate fundraising mechanism. The other nice thing about that these days is that you don't necessarily have to go down to a specific location and do the race. You basically can just do the run on your own time, at your own pace, when you want to. Nobody's really checking in on you. It is self-reporting. Already a few Rotarians have talked about maybe using it as an opportunity to get together and do a walk/run on someday around that time. So it'll be a fun way to have a little bit of fellowship and generate some revenues for the club. And Neeta, who just posted in the chat box, is the person who spearheaded this event. So if you have more questions, she's really the person to reach out to. Of course, as always, we have our Job One program getting up and running right now as we speak. Also speaking of Karl Zimmerman, of course. Alita, are you on right now? Do you want to introduce Job One? You may not be on. I can just run through that real fast. I think most of you know this is our program to give Chicago high school students paid internships for the summer. And prior to the internship, we go through a series of different job skills training seminars for those students. It's a fantastic program. At the end, the students are also eligible for additional scholarship opportunities. Applications are due March 12th. If you know high school students in the city of Chicago, please forward the application to them. If you know teachers who might know high school students or who teach high school students, please get the word out to them. It's really important to get as many students signed up and make sure that everybody is hearing about this program. Of course, the harder part usually is getting our employers. So if you might have an opening for high school students this summer, we pay the minimum wage, 20 to 40 hours per week. It is a great program. You won't be disappointed. There'll be a great help for your business. Otherwise, if you know other folks who could use high school students for the summer, make sure to pass them our way, and we will get them signed up for the Job One program. We also, as always, in order to pay for all of these programs, we have our annual campaign. Marga, if you're on today, could you give a quick update on the annual campaign?
Hi, everybody. Yes, Eric, thank you so much. Here I am again. I am the woman that will ask you for money because this, what we do for the foundation, as you know, we can make miracles happen. To give you an idea, we are part of a very large grant to help the country of Sri Lanka, an island country, to one day, not very far in the distant in the future, become cervical cancer free. And all of you who contributed to this project, to our foundation, Rotary Foundation, you are a part of it. Now, I'm happy to tell you that we have two foundations, and with the Rotary One Foundation, we're a little bit over 50% of our goal of $15,000. So first, let me thank very much everybody who has contributed. If you want to contribute a little bit more, go ahead, because we're going to do good things with those funds. With the Rotary One Foundation, that also last year, we received the different committees in our club received over $170,000 that we have used for the multiple projects that committees in our club are involved. So, this is really what we do with that money, multiplies and benefits to so many. So out of this $60,000 goal, we have reached about almost $34,000. So you have now, from now until the end of the Rotary year, which is at the end of June, to pledge to make small, medium, or large monthly contributions. Or if you win the lotto, just think of the Rotary One Foundation and the Rotary International Foundation. Thank you so much, everybody.
Well, thank you, Marga. Appreciate all the great work you're doing on that and the great progress. And again, encourage everybody to give at least a little bit to the two foundations. We have a variety of meetings coming up, hosted not only by our club, but the district, the region, other clubs, many of which I want to highlight here today. I'm going to run through a bunch of them, so buckle up, buckaroos, and here we go. We've got Black History Month programs from the Maywood Proviso Rotary Club. A great lineup this month. Here's the program for that. You can also go to their website and you can email the clerk there. This information is also contained in the gyrator, so find the information there. There's a lot of great programs. We also have a program coming from the membership development team at Rotary International. They're hosting a conversation on the Black experience in Rotary on Thursday, February 25th at 3 p.m. Central. And that's something that really is going to help allow space for all Rotarians to bring their full, most authentic selves to the organization. So that's something that I encourage folks to check out. We also have Rotary Peace Fellowships. We have some information here on the Peace Fellowships coming through Region 36 through the Rotary Foundation on February 25th from 7 to 8 p.m. Central. If you want to learn more about Peace Fellows and Peace Fellowships, attend that meeting. And it's timely because applications for the 2022 Rotary Peace Fellowship are now open. So this fully funded fellowship provides peace and development leaders with the knowledge, skills, and networks they need to advance peace building careers. And that is due on May 15th. So you can check that out as well. District 4240 and 4250 is also having an international project fair on February 18th through the 20th. That's virtual, obviously. And this is something that they've organized for more than 25 years. The purpose of this is to provide a meeting point for clubs in Central America and North America to be able to join forces and collaborate to carry out projects together to improve the quality of life of Central American communities. So it's a great way to generate ideas for potential projects in the future that we might be able to get engaged with. As always, we also have a lot of our meetings going on. Of course, as always, if you check out the calendar, you'll find our PR Marketing Committee, Community Service Committee, and International Service Committee meetings coming up later this month as well as next month. And of course, the board meeting every first Tuesday of the month at 4 p.m. All are held virtually, and anyone is welcome to join any of those meetings. We encourage you to join to see how the business of the club is actually conducted and help to have an impact on how we spend all that money that Marga is collecting. We also have several great meetings coming up, both this Thursday and over the next couple of weeks. This Thursday on February 18th at 5:30 p.m., we sing happy birthday to the Rotary Club of Chicago and all of the Rotary universe for the 116th birthday party organized by our very own Timo Ribot. Please join for that and have a little fun and a little fellowship. Then next week on February 23rd, our speaker is Alex Kotlowitz. He's an author, journalist, and filmmaker. And then on March 2nd for our Rotary After Work program, we have my very good friend, George Smith, will be presenting on Black engineers, scientists, and inventors in American history. It's a great, engaging program. I've seen him give the presentation several times. He's also the founder of the National Society of Black Engineers. And a very, very long time ago, I won't say exactly when because he might get angry with me, he was the recipient of the Chicago Engineers Foundation High School Award. So that'll be a great program and I encourage everyone to attend. So at this time in the program, of course, we always do the four-way test and we like to have one of our international guests recite the four-way test. Richard, if you're still on, would you like to recite the four-way test for us? We'll throw the four-way test up on the screen and you can read off of that. Richard may be on mute. How about Ronnie? Are you still on, Ronnie?
I'm still here and I'm just going to try and make it larger to make sure I can read it properly. I'm on a smartphone. The four-way test. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? will it be of goodwill and better friendship? I can't read it properly. And will it be beneficial to all concerned? I always get caught on the third one.
No worries. That was perfect, Ronnie. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for reciting that for us. Thanks to all of our guests and members for joining. And with that, meeting adjourned.